Council's website for those who are into these kind of things. Could I ask IT colleagues to start the meeting, and can I ask Christine to call for said and then to make any apologies?
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. We have Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yeah.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Present, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. Nope. Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present, Christine.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here, Christine.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Barry Douglas.
Here, Christine, thanks.
Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here, thanks, Christine.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor Drew Filson.
Here.
And Dr. David Lewis.
Yes, I'm here.
Harriet Johnston.
Yes, thanks.
Babs Mowat. Babs on the screen. Hazel Malacotti.
Yes, thanks.
Jackie Livingston.
Yes, thanks.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. And can I ask for any declarations of interest?
I think I should declare at this time that I sit on the Upworld board for the one of the papers that's coming up later on. That's the intervention page. Just for clarity.
Yeah. I think I sit in the well and this is it Centre Stage Advisory Board or something running about it, I think. Is that the thing we're on, Barry, or did that?
I think that's been stood down now, Leader.
I'm not sure if it's active or not, but myself and Barry were at one point on it, but mention it if it's still in the go. We've not met in a while, that's for sure. Okay, and we'll just go straight on to item 2E, which is education service, best value service review of early learning and childcare. And Linda, you leading that? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Good morning, members and colleagues. We're proud to present to you today our best value service review for the early years service, and I'm going to hand over to Janie Allen to present that. But in advance, I'd certainly like to thank Janie, her team and the other services who've collaborated in bringing this to you this morning. Thanks, members.
Thanks, Linda, and thank you, Chair. This report summarises the conclusions of the Best Value Service Review of Early Learning and Childcare Provision. Like many other local authorities, East Ayrshire is facing significant challenges in meeting all of the commitments of the early years expansion policies and is having to make changes to deliver in terms of delivery to meet fiscal pressures. As members will be aware, East Ayrshire Performs reported that the service started this year with an adverse budget position of £1.27 million, which had been carried forward from 2022-23. Through a reduction in costs and by using non-recurring balances, this was reduced to a year-end overspend of £418,000. This is a large and complex report which begins by describing the legislative policy and strategic context for early years, including funded early learning and childcare, and I'll refer to early learning and childcare as ELC throughout the report. The report then turns to the proposals to deliver the funded hours within the current operational, legislative and budget parameters using the challenge, consult, compare and consider framework. While the review has identified savings in the delivery of funded ELC, it has also identified key areas for investment. The report notes the management actions taken in 2023 and 24 and in 2024-25 to reduce the cost of ELC delivery with a proposed budget saving of £1,393,030, as noted in paragraph 91, table 18 on page 32, and in appendix 3 with a net saving of 32 full-time equivalent posts. There are 8 recommendations set out in paragraph 2, which are also nested within the narrative of the report. The report also notes the resulting pressures on facilities and property management due to the changes in ELC delivery and the need to ensure a stable ELC workforce going forward to deliver a service to children and families. 6 of the recommendations propose to invest £394,000 of the savings in the sustainable rate for funded providers and childminders, in cross-boundary payments for early learning and childcare places, in an enhanced ASN rate for funded providers and in meals and cleaning. It's anticipated that with this investment of £394,000, alongside the net saving of £999,030, the revised service provision will be delivered within the budget as it currently stands. The first part of the review challenges the need for the service and why the Council provides it. Table 2 at paragraph 35 describes early years provision in East Ayrshire, including funded early learning and childcare, and the mixed economy of delivery through the local authority, voluntary and private sector providers. Paragraph 36, table 3 highlights the current pressures associated with service delivery across all providers within ELC settings. These include an unstable workforce due to vacant, permanent and temporary vacant posts as a result of career breaks, reduced working hours, maternity leave, long-term and short-term sick absences. Sustainability of quality ELC provision and meeting statutory duties within the budget allocated. An increasing number of children with additional support needs. The hourly rates for funded places, which vary across local authorities in Scotland, which places a pressure on the ELC budget to fund cross-boundary places, as the rates are higher in other local authority areas than that paid to funded providers and childminders in East Ayrshire. And the cost of ELC delivery and sustainable rate to funded providers and childminders in East Ayrshire. 4 recommendations are noted on pages 11 and 12 as follows. Recommendation 1 proposes an increase to the hourly rate for funded providers and childminders to £6 for 3 and 4-year-olds and £6.15 for eligible 2-year-olds. This would require an investment of £32,000 from the balance of £1.3 million based on the number of children accessing funding of ELC at August 2024. Recommendation notes there is £168,000 projected overspend in payments to funded providers and childminders based on the current hourly rates. An investment of £168,000 from the balance in payments to funded providers and childminders in East Ayrshire would address the current shortfall. Recommendation 3 addresses cross-boundary ELC places, which supports the national policy of funding follows the child, agreed by COSLA and the Scottish Government. Cross-boundary places are funded at the hourly rate and meal costs set by the receiving local authority. An investment of £100,000 from the balance in payments to cross-boundary funded providers and childminders would support an increase to that hourly rate. And recommendation 4 proposes an investment of £54,000 from the balance to invest in an enhanced rate for funded providers who support children with assessed complex additional support needs. This enhanced hourly rate would allow funded providers to invest in additional support for identified children. Requests for assistance are discussed on page 13 and 14. Local authorities have a duty to provide daycare for children in need in their area who are aged 5 or under and who have not yet started school, and that duty extends to the provision of appropriate care for school-aged children in need in the areas outside school hours and during school holidays. The latter is provided through school-aged childcare services, our community childminders and the Council's summer holiday scheme. Table 4 sets out the requests for assistance over the last 3 years and notes while the overall number of requests for assistance has reduced, the number of requests for children with additional support needs has increased. Recommendation 5 proposes to review the system and funding for requests for assistance through the cross-cutting review of children's services. The outcome will support a revised set of guidance for the multi-agency resource allocation group, with a structured limitation placed on the number of spaces, hours and the level of need to accommodate requests in order to support a sustainable budget. The profile of the ELC workforce starts at paragraph 55 on page 15 through to paragraph 64 on page 18. Academic year 23-24 proved to be a very challenging year for service delivery due to the pause placed on the recruitment of permanent and temporary vacant posts. With the increasing number of staff on maternity leave, staff opting to reduce their hours on a temporary or permanent basis, long-term and short-term sick leave, and accommodating staff annual leave requests, all contributed to the staffing issues that we had in our early childhood centres. As a result, 18 of the 36 early childhood centres had to offer reduced hours of funded ELC in either a morning or afternoon session due to staff availability. The current pressure in service delivery is recruitment and to vacant posts and pressure to sustain lists of bank ELC practitioners and bank ELC support assistants who may be on the bank register for other local authority areas. Reducing the bank spend is a priority for the service. Therefore, it is important that permanent and temporary posts are filled where required. However, bank staff are still necessary for short-term cover to meet adult-child ratios. This includes cover for short-term sick absence, special or enhanced leave, and cover for staff attending training or professional development opportunities. Table 8 notes that at the 1st of July this year, there was 108.5 full-time equivalent vacant posts across the whole of the early years service. This includes permanent and temporary posts at all levels, including heads of centre, deputies, seniors, practitioners, equity and excellence leads, support assistants, clerical assistants, and community practitioners. In order to deliver the funded entitlement to all children, it is critical that the ELC workforce and clerical hours required for service delivery from January 2025 onwards are recruited. Table 8 also highlights the number of families supported by community practitioners. Parenting support and enriched early learning opportunities can improve outcomes for children who have or are at risk of developmental delay. The team work in partnership with other agencies, including housing services, women's aid, mental health services, and support from the Council's financial inclusion team. Building the strengths and capacity of parents and families is a key action in the wellbeing theme of East Ayrshire's community plan. Table 8 also refers to the increasing need during academic year 23-24 to redeploy our equity and excellence leads to meet adult-child ratios due to staffing pressures and meeting the needs of children with complex additional support needs and other targeted inputs on a peripatetic basis. As a result of the increase in term time early childhood centres, along with the pressing and changing demand across all of the 36 early childhood centres, there is a need to undertake a strategic review of how the equity and excellence leads are deployed. This review will give consideration to the demand for focused, targeted inputs to ensure skills, expertise and high quality practices which add value to children's experiences which are shared across more settings. It's important to note at paragraph 66 that the current inspection process is changing and all registered daycare or children's services, which includes our early childhood centres, our funded providers, out of school care services and childminders delivering the funded early years hours, that they will be subject to the new joint inspection, which will be launched in September next year, following a period of testing and further engagement with ELC and school age sector. Current models of ELC delivery and uptake of places at 2024 starts at paragraph 68 on pages 23 and 24, noting that there was an uptake of 2,305 places for children aged 3 to 5 and 275 places for eligible 2-year-olds in the current autumn term. Table 9 details the uptake of the models of ELC delivery and demonstrates that the most popular funded hours continues to be term time. That's 30 hours a week across 38 weeks. There are parents who are seeking a more flexible model of funded ELC, and this can be provided in the 9 full-year early childhood centres, 6 funded providers and childminders who are on the framework. However, the level of flexibility previously offered in 21-22 and 22-23 has been identified as a contributing factor to increased costs of service delivery. Table 10 highlights the number of children whose parents are choosing to delay their primary 1 start date and access an additional year of early learning and childcare. And while it's difficult to predict each year how many parents will take up that option, it's anticipated that a minimum of 100 children who have a birthday between the school starting date in August and the end of February will access that additional year every academic year. While this isn't a huge number, it can have an impact on the availability of places for eligible 3 and 4-year-olds in settings, particularly if there's a high number of requests for that additional year in individual early childhood centres or funded providers. Moving on to paragraph 76, this details the former 8 early years funding allocation lines, which have now been rationalised into a funding formula that takes account of client numbers, deprivation and rurality. The transition to the formula was completed in financial year 24-25, with the ELC funding distributed to local authorities based on the formula from 24-25 onwards. This means that the funding for 1140 hours of ELC is no longer ring-fenced. In addressing the overspend, the Education Service worked with colleagues in finance across early years and with the Improvement Service to review service provision and establish options to enable the delivery of the statutory entitlement of ELC hours to all eligible children. The management actions undertaken in 23-24 and 24-25, which includes 6 full early year childhood centres changing from full year to term time delivery, resulted in revised staffing structures for these centres as set out in Table 14, and the savings is noted. Table 16 at paragraph 89 provides a breakdown of employee and operational costs, with a large percentage of costs sitting with early childhood centres, followed by payments to funded providers and childminders and cross-boundary places, and then provision of meals and facility management recharges. Meals and cleaning are highlighted in pages 29 and 30. All children who access a funded place are entitled to a meal. Facilities and property management provide the catering service to all in-house services, our ECCs, and support some of our external funded providers as well. Direct payments of £3 per meal is provided to the remaining funded providers and childminders who arrange their own catering. The overall costs within catering have been subject to significant cost inflation. These cost pressures, as well as the overall reduction of meals due to the changes in the models of ELC delivery, have been absorbed within facilities and property management budget, as the recharge to education remains at £3.11 per meal. East Ayrshire Performs Period 4 highlighted the projected overspend in meals and a projected increase for recharges for cleaning in 12 early childhood centres. To address the projected variances, Recommendation 6 proposes an investment of £20,000 in meals and to further review the recharge arrangements and service level agreement to address further budget implication of the early years catering on facilities and property management. And Recommendation 7 proposes an investment of a further £20,000 in cleaning early childhood centres, which will provide a total budget of £165,000. Paragraph 91, Table 18 sets out the management actions in 2024-25, which has realised a total saving of £1,393,030. The proposals for the investment of £394,000 are itemised in the table as the revised saving of just over £999,000. There are 2 further management actions noted on page 33. The first one is the need to undertake the strategic review of how equity and excellence leads are deployed, as 27 of our 36 centres are now term time. And the second management action is the revised job outline and job evaluation for our early learning and childcare support assistants. This has confirmed a regrade from grade B to grade C, backdated to the 3rd of June 2024, when the new requirements for SSSC registration came into force. Funding has been identified in the earliest budget from a vacant central early years post to accommodate this. Recommendations 1 to 7 requiring Cabinet approval are detailed on pages 33 and 34. The next essential requirement of a BVR is consultation with customers and stakeholders, and paragraphs 96 to 110 describe the consultations undertaken this year as part of this review. These include the statutory parent consultation, the ELC workforce consultation, funded providers consultation, childminder consultation, and discussions with facilities and property management. Parents were asked to rank their preferred model of funded ELC hours, and the majority chose a term time place. They also reported that the most important considerations in choosing an ELC provider for the children were location of the provider, overall quality of provider, and staff team, as demonstrated in the graph at paragraph 104. The ELC workforce provided many positive comments in terms of their professional role. However, the responses also highlighted the strain on the workforce during academic year 23-24 due to staff availability and the pause in recruitment. The responses to the staff consultation has informed the priority to support and develop the ELC workforce which is set out in the Early Learning and Childcare Plan for 24 to 26. The sustainable rate for funded ELC continues to be the most pressing concern for both funded providers and childminders, and the revised hourly rate for academic year 24-25 requires to be increased, and this is one of the key recommendations noted in the report. The outcomes of our consultation and engagement with key stakeholders has informed our 4 key priorities for development over the next 2 years. These are children's communication, speech and language, the ELC workforce development and support, transitions, and family learning and support. Appendix 4 develops these priorities as set out in our Early Learning and Childcare Plan under 4 key questions: how we will deliver early learning and childcare, how we will ensure quality, how we will support and develop the ELC workforce, and how we will communicate, engage and consult with parents. These will be reviewed in preparation for the next statutory parent consultation in 2026. The East Ayrshire self-assessment model referred to on page 40 is a key part of the Council's approach to best value. Recommendation 8 notes that all areas of early learning and childcare reviewed provision will undergo a consolidated self-assessment and identify further improvement actions across the service. Further consideration of operations may be necessary beyond this review as future year financial limitations are established for the Council and education. Moving on to compare, the best value review should contain appropriate performance comparisons with other councils or organisations. In reporting on the outcome of this review to Cabinet, paragraphs 113 to 134 set out the benchmarking that has taken place with other local authorities across Scotland. This includes the statutory starting dates for funded ELC, the uptake of places for eligible 2-year-olds, the number of funded providers and childminders on the framework to deliver funded ELC, the sustainable hourly rate for funded providers and childminders, and the structure of the central early years team. The final part of the best value review considers all possible options for delivering the service with a view to recommending the most appropriate approach based on information gathered in the course of the review. As part of this consideration, we referred to an external government agency, the Improvement Service, in 2023 for further guidance and support. Colleagues in the Improvement Service mapped out the location of all the ECCs across East Ayrshire, as shown in map 1 on page 45. It's clear to see that the majority of service provision across the 9 geographic areas is in the Kilmarnock area. In considering options for a change in the delivery model from full year to term time, current capacity, demand, geographic setting, and consideration of equitable access to full-time places in the 9 geographic areas of ELC delivery in East Ayrshire was key to inform the management actions. Map 2 at paragraph 141 illustrates the area of East Ayrshire which is currently within a 5-mile radius of an ELC setting which offers full-time places, compared to the area in map 3 should all ECCs be converted to term time settings. The uptake of models of funded ELC places across East Ayrshire, the 0 to 5 population, the location of funded providers and the availability of childminders across the local authority area delivering the funded hours provided the scope to review and amend the models of ELC delivery in 3 early childhood centres in 24-25. Paragraph 143, Table 25, identifies the 9 full-year ECCs, the 6 full-year funded providers, and the number of childminders in each geographic area that can provide a more flexible place for parents who are seeking funded hours out with the term time model. We also considered a return to the provision of wraparound care, which was previously provided in 9 early childhood centres. However, taking account of the parent consultation with the preferred model of term time hours, operational and staffing costs, and the risk of displacing 115 childminders who provide childcare for parents, this is not a viable option at this time. The primary objective for the service in East Ayrshire must be to bring the delivery of the statutory entitlement of 1140 hours of funded ELC in line with the available budget and the ELC staffing plan for this current academic year. Paragraph 148 and 153 summarises the management actions again taken in 23-24 and 24-25. And paragraph 154 summarises the 8 recommendations requiring Cabinet approval. in line with the review delivery of funded early learning childcare that will provide an investment of £394,000 and ensure the reduction of the overall early years budget by £990,030, bringing to line the budget allocated to the service. Paragraphs 156 to 165 details the implications of the report, which includes the financial and human resource implications, along with the equality impact assessment, which has been completed and details the areas for potential impact. In conclusion, Chair, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my direct team, some of whom are here today, colleagues in central education, finance, people and culture, and facilities and property management, and colleagues in the improvement service who have supported or contributed to this best value review process, and to the parents, early learning and childcare workforce, funded providers and childminders who took the time to take part in the stakeholder consultations, the outcome of which has shaped the ELC plan for 24-26. That concludes the report, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Janie. Appreciate all the work that's went into this paper, quite an extensive report. And, you know, I think in terms of despite the difficult financial circumstances we find ourselves in, it's absolutely a way forward to keep this sector in a healthy position and keep delivering and keep going forward, because it's so valuable within our education system. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair, and echo your comments. There is a lot of information in the report. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the extensive work that has been done by education staff and with support from the Finance Department in this Best Service Value Review, and of course recognising all the work has been done during an exceptionally difficult and challenging set of circumstances last year. Not that I needed any reminder, but for me that's just testimony to the flexibility and the resilience of our educators that we have here in East Ayrshire. It's helpful to see the specific pressures individually outlined in the report and the management operational actions that have already been taken to address these, while also noting that further management actions are required going forward, and this is obviously captured mainly in recommendation 8. I obviously welcome the investment in the sustainable rates and hope this approach will ensure that we have comparable rates going forward, and that might alleviate some of the pressures that we've experienced, and also hopefully the timing of that can help the funded providers as well plan for their future, and will go some way to helping us recruit and retrain the staff that we need. Recommendation 5, I've got a comment on that, but I think it's maybe more for the Chief Executive. The wording of one of the sentences starts, seek a commitment from other services where contributions may be sought from partners in relation to assessed needs. Eddie, I'm maybe being pedantic, but that sounds too passive to my ears. So what process are we going to employ to make sure that happens? Will that be picked up by the cross-cutting review of the Children's Services team? But I accept I might be being pedantic there. Page 41, paragraph 109, if I can draw people's attention to that. I note that part of the consultation with the funded providers, they've noted that they have a need for training areas such as autism awareness, Makaton, and strategies for emotional regulation. Now, I fully appreciate that's a responsibility for the funding providers, but I'm wondering if there's any opportunities, if we have in-house training, that they could offer that for their new staff. I know we recently had the head and the deputy head of Willowbank in Chambers, and they gave elected members a session on Makaton, and that was really, really useful for us. So I'm just wondering if we can explore that, if there's an opportunity there to work closer with the funded providers. If I can draw people's attention to page 39, paragraph 105. Hopefully colleagues will remember at last month's Joint Council Community Planningship Board, we heard about the persistent upward trend with the concerns for developmental speech and language. And I also recall from a time on IJB learning about the impact that deficiencies in that area has on the prison population. So there's obviously a huge impact to society there. And of course, there have been reports of lasting detrimental impact from the COVID-19 pandemic on communication needs of our youngest children. So the bits outlined in that paragraph that focus on the children's communication, speech and language in particular, looking at it for the next 2 years, I think taking into account all those areas I spoke about, that might be an area that we want to explore further and maybe take a deeper dive. And I have had some conversations with Linda, and I would like to continue that. But yes, just really thank you, Janie, and thank you for your team that's in the chambers today, and all the rest of the team back at the ranch, so to speak, that's gone into getting us into the better position we are in today, and hopefully it'll give us a good springboard to go forward for the further management actions that are outlined in the report. Thank you.
No, thanks very much, Elaine. No, I agree with your point in paragraph 105 about speech and language therapy, and we've heard that in the IJB, and certainly anecdotally from some of the head teachers that we did take a particular hit in COVID, where that was dramatically affected, and I think we could do explore and take in a deeper dive into that. But in terms of other points, will I bring in terms of in-house training? Bring in either Linda or Janie, and I'll get Eddie to sweep up in terms of recommendation 5 and page 4 as well. So.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of funded providers have access to all the training that we provide as well. So obviously, they will identify in terms of their own training needs analysis what training their staff require. We have communication champions in our funded providers, as well as our own early childhood centres who support children in terms of the development of speech and language and communication. But if there's any particular area, for instance, if they have a child coming in who requires a particular care plan, then obviously health will get on board with that as well. But our funded providers have access to our education psychology service. They have access to our in-service training. They have access to input from our peripatetic teachers. They have access also to our improvement officers. So there's a wealth of support and advice that's provided to our funded providers over and above the funded hourly rate that they get from the local authority. And funded providers we have a very close relationship with our funded providers. We meet with them every term. Gwyneth Quinn, one of our officers that's here today, is in regular contact with our funded providers, as they are with her. So if any issues come up, we can have that one-to-one or face-to-face conversation with them.
Okay, and Eddie.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor King. So I think, when you look at paragraph 53 in the report that sets out the table in returns for requests for assistance, you can see the complexity around that a load of numbers are going down, some of the complexity of the requests are going up, and that almost reflects some of the wider issues that Linda reports to us regularly around some of the challenges, within the overall, learning and teaching. So the bit for, I suppose, myself, in terms of the cross-cutting review, is that I try and lift that right up to say, from the perspective of the person receiving the service, they shouldn't actually know what happens in the background, whether it's a social work service, a health service, or an education service that's actually having to provide funding there. It's about how you deliver things for the person. And I suppose that's the whole purpose of these cross-cutting reviews, to actually lift that up away from there. So that's why it's absolutely appropriate to take it into that agenda, that we can look at the outcome for people, and actually behind the scenes, whatever we need to do to actually make that happen becomes an important thing for that. So that's why it's up at that level.
Well, thank you for that. No, I'm fully on board with that ethos, Eddie. It was just when you read that recommendation, I think if you don't have that insight, because you don't want people arguing over which budget something comes out. If the need's there, it needs to get tackled. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Anyway, no, sorry. No. Oh, Maureen, yeah.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you, Janie, for the presentation of this paper. My goodness, I think we all are aware what a complex environment that you actually work in. I think you have done really a rather remarkable job actually managing to capture everything that you have to bring to the table to us and get that into one report, which is actually, much though it has many tables, much though it has many recommendations, but it actually sets something out which is not only able for us to follow and to be able to do scrutiny on, but also actually sets out for not only the providers themselves, but also for the wider public, looking at, so what is it we're actually delivering here, and how are we actually going to approach some of the issues? Because as you have said, the last year has been a taxing year, not only for providers, but I suspect very much for the recipients of the service and how they have experienced changes in service provision for the reasons that you have outlined as we have gone across the year. So again, in line with the Chief Executive's comments, I'm sure that what our service users want is to some confidence that what they have experienced in the last year is being looked at in a way that is going to deliver them a service that they are actually comfortable with and meets their needs at the end of the day. And none of that, Janie, has been an easy task for you or your staff. Again, just pointing out some of the questions and some of the topics that this has raised. Of course, I know the task that you were set, so to bring forward a report which highlights and pinpoints the areas where investment is required and what it is anticipated that will deliver, whilst at the same stage making the substantial saving of £1.9 million is not an easy task. I do say that whilst I am very happy that this comes forward at this time, I do suspect looking forward that we are very much looking at an iceberg here, and we are looking at the beginning of a process which will certainly sustain us forward in a very workable way for this year. But I think that we would both agree that this is not the end of a process. And I think when you look at the paper and you see how early years provision has grown and various layers have been absolutely tacked on like skins of the onion to that, you can understand why the complexity is that you have here. So, some things to look at. You have said to us that what you actually need in the way of workforce recruitment. You have also very helpfully given us a timescale for that, and you have set out that timescale as January 25. And I think if I heard you rightly in your presentation, that is across all layers of workforce that we have associated with early years provision, all of the way through from admin staff within early years to the actual qualified direct providers. So I'm interested if you can expand to me. We are now clearly almost at the end of October. Timescales for actually undertaking that, what stage in the progress are we at, and what degree of confidence can you give us that by the time that we get to January 25, we will have actually secured that recruitment process and people into post. Yesterday, Deputy Leader, myself and Councillor Cowan were very happy to have been at SL 66 in Cumnock, which is looking at how we actually bring in people into our workforce. We had a very excellent example about somebody who was engaged with the service through their children initially, and now they are actually moving into full-time employment. That's the real positive development that we're looking to actually get people being active within our economy locally. So, Janie, how confident are you that by January 2025 that we will have actually secured people into the posts where you currently have vacancies would be number one. And I'm sorry, I do have some other questions, so I hope you'll indulge me and be able to come back in, Leader. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, Jenny.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Councillor Mackay, thank you for your question. In terms of the vacancies, the number of posts we're required to fill on either a permanent or temporary basis for January is currently 70. We do have staff who are on temporary contracts, and we have other staff on the bank registers who've been providing short-term cover. So there will be interest, I would suspect, from this group in terms of the posts that will be available in terms of our recruitment. I'm hoping that we'll be able to advertise some of our more promoted posts externally, so that we can obviously attract both internally and externally the best people for those particular jobs. It is a big task. We're coming into November. I do recognise that, but along with our colleagues from culture and people in culture, sorry, I'm hopeful we'll be able to move on this fairly quickly. I cannot guarantee we will have everybody in place that we need to have in place for January, but we will have the best shot that we can in terms to achieve that. I'm not sure, Amanda, if you would like to maybe add some further comment to that at this point. Thanks.
Thanks, Janie. Through you, Chair. Yeah, we are working just now with Janie and our colleagues, with my members of my team. We have a robust action plan in place. It's a layered approach that we need to take, because as Janie mentioned, there's a number of people on temporary contracts and people that have been working bank. There'll be elements of increasing the period of the temporary contracts. There's also a number of employees in there that have got employment rights, so we need to deal with them in a layered approach. But we will work closely with the team and work as tenuously as we can to get as many people in place before the deadline. We're also identifying, as Janie said, the promoted posts, and other information is being provided to ourselves for the WRG so that we can get those moving as quickly as possible. So without, as Janie says, we can't confidently say that you can always fill all posts, because we need to wait to see who comes, but we have got an action plan in place to take that forward.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Amanda and Janie, both for that. I wonder, Amanda, if there is a reporting mechanism, because this is clearly vital to us, not only vital to us, but I suspect vital to ensure that we actually deliver against the savings plan set out here. Can we have some interim updates, please? What would be the mechanism for achieving that? Because that's something that I would hope that we could assemble as part of a further recommendation.
Thanks, Maureen. Janie or Amanda?
Yeah, happy to accommodate that. We can look offline at what the best mechanism for that would be, given that East Ayrshire performs as only quarterly. It probably doesn't fit there, so that you could maybe get a monthly update in the position, but I'll look at that offline and come back to you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. I think that would be very helpful all round, really just to focus us on where we actually are. Again, Janie, you made reference to the equity and excellent leads and how they were going to be further deployed. Again, similar question in terms of when will that work be completed?
Thanks, Chair. Through you, Chair. Councillor Mackay, we have 15 equity and excellence lead posts which are funded through the deprivation element of the funding formula. 14 of those posts are filled at the current time. They are deployed in a range of different early childhood centres at the moment, some which are full year, some which are term time. But as I've said in the report, the majority of services that we now have will be term time services, and these are 52-week year posts. So we will be embarking on a consultation with those equity and excellence leads, obviously seeking any volunteers that may wish to move to term time work, but recognising that this process might take a longer period in terms of that consultation, in terms of the work that we have to do with them and also with the unions. They are a valuable asset to the service. They are funded quite specifically to work out with the child-adult ratios and are about supporting children to attain and to make progress in terms of their learning and development. So through this process, we will be having a meeting with them early November to start this process. I can't at this point in time confirm when that process will finish, but I'm hopeful that by next year we will have 2 or 3 people who may have moved to a term time position fairly quickly. So that's where we're sitting at the moment. Councillor Mackay, thanks.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Janie.
Janie.
Sorry, I'm going to keeping pushing you on this because this is something that you have highlighted as of significance. So I'm just making sure that we fully understand what that is in terms of service delivery significance and also financial implications in terms of that.
Sorry, Maureen, just what's your ask?
Sorry, it's to ask in terms of, given that we have a drift, it feels like, in terms of completion dates for that, in terms of what has been built in terms of service impact and financial implications in relation to if this does not complete within, there must be some projected timescale.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Mackay, I mean, I would envisage that we will have this piece of work completed by the spring term. In terms of the savings that have been identified with a figure against equity and excellence leads, it may well be that that saving completely will not be realised at that point. However, in terms of movement with other posts within the service redesign and structures within early childhood centres, I'm confident we'll still be able to make the savings across the piece.
Okay, so then there will be management mitigations if there is drift with that, but you're guaranteeing, as this paper sets out, that the savings of £1.9 million will be achieved.
But I would hope so. I mean, I think we've got the reassurance. We've got monthly. You know, I think we would agree to your suggestion of monthly updates, Maureen, and we've also got East Ayrshire performance as well. So you know, I think that's the direction of travel we want to go in, and I think we're confident. The officers say they're confident of meeting those projections. Am I right?
Yeah. Thank you very much. The next.
Sorry, Maureen. Just Janie's going to come in first.
Yes, I just want to be clear about the figure. The figure isn't £1.9 million.
No.
The total saving is £1.393 million.
1.93. Okay.
Maureen.
Yeah, sorry, thank you very much. The next is to move off that, Janie, and that is, again, one of the things that you've talked about, and I know that will be important, is you explained to us about the planned inspection regime changes, and again, the places funding. So these are for the external providers. These are things that are important. Again, it adds to the, I think it gives us that sense of the complex environment that you're actually working in here. And when you look and you assess that, because you have very, very many years experience here, how do you think that the providers, and particularly I'm thinking of childminders, will feel in terms of the new demands that are made on them in relation to the inspection regime changes and also the places funding? Will one be able to offset the other, or what's your sense about the culture within that sector that you're working with?
Chair, through you, Councillor Mackay, the funded providers and childminders, as well as our own services, are very used to be inspected by the Care Inspectorate, which are unannounced inspections. Funded providers and our own services are used to being inspected by Her Majesty's Inspector and also have experience of shared inspections. So the joint inspection model is not a new model of inspection for childminders, potentially, who deliver the full funded hours. That's not part of the funded hours. If they're delivering the totality of 1140 hours, they will be subject to an inspection by HMIE as well. Now, the detail of that has yet to be delivered by HMIE and the Care Inspectorate. They consulted on the new joint inspection model 2 years ago. It was anticipated that the new joint inspection model would have been implemented this year. However, that has not happened. There was a further delay, and that new joint inspection model will be tested and tried out in early 2025 in a range of different settings, with a view, as it says in the report, it will be fully implemented in September 2025. In terms of our funded providers and our childminders, they do get support from the childminders from our community childcare service, because they have quality assurance visits as well from our staff, and also our improvement officers work alongside and support and challenge our funded providers, as well as our own early childhood centres. So overall, that joint inspection framework and model has yet to be published, but again, with the support and challenge of our officers, services should be able to deliver the high quality and be able to demonstrate that at the time of inspection, recognising that standalone care inspectorate inspections will still be unannounced, and that is when requirements or recommendations are made for services. And that can be, you know, all services that are delivering and are registered as daycare or children's services. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I think it, again, it gives us another layer, Janie, of just the complexity of what is actually being dealt with here, and how integrated it is and how complicated it is, and that there are many factors out with our control, which you are also having to balance. Which doesn't make things any easier, I understand completely. Now, also moving on to a different area, which is comprehensive within the report, and that is we have got that we are no longer having funding ring-fenced for the 1140 hours. How are we actually going to capitalise on that, I suppose, change and the opportunity that that creates for us?
Yeah. Can you answer that? We can come back later with just a response to that. I don't think we can immediately do it.
Sorry, another area, and again, I know this feels as if we are jumping from area to area, but it does reflect the service delivery. So the standards of meal provision, Janie, how does that get measured, and what feedback do we actually do in relation to that? You've given us some detail in relation to the £3 payment, but how are we actually ensuring that what we have something which is standardised? Do we have something that is set for people, and how do we actually inspect that internally?
Jenny or Linda, yeah.
I'm going to pass that on to Andrew, who's here today. Thank you.
Great.
Andrew, yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Mackay, just to clarify, are you asking about the service that we provide in-house, or are you asking about the funding that's provided to externals?
Yes, I'm asking about the external
I'm going to pass that
funding,
back
Andrew.
to Jeannie then.
Thank you.
Yes,
not for you.
not for Andrew. Through you, Chair, Councillor Mackay, all registered daycare of children's services have national guidance to support them in terms of the delivery of snacks and meals. It's called Setting the Table, and that has recently been refreshed and published in the last few weeks.
Yep.
It's very clear in that guidance what requires to be provided in terms of meals and snacks, both in terms of portion size and nutritional value. Through inspection, the Care Inspectorate take a great interest and focus on meals during the time, not only what's been provided in the meal, but also the experience for children during that meal time. And also through our community childcare service, those that support our childminders, they will be asking childminders about meal provision and what is being provided and how that's been provided and the experience for children at that and those meal times. And also in the funded providers, our improvement officers will also do exactly the same thing. So there is, I suppose, a general monitoring in terms of what is being offered for children in terms of nutrition and portion size. But again, that is reported in more detail through the inspection process. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. And then just my final question,
Yeah.
please, and I'm sure everybody will be pleased about that. And Jenny, it's the issue in terms of, we cover this often in papers, SSC registration, just for absolute clarity, who is actually paying the costs of that, please?
Through you, Chair, my understanding is that that changed and the Council now pays for that SSC registration for all registered staff that work in the Council.
And that would include our external providers?
No, that doesn't include the external providers. External providers are separate registered services, and therefore they have the responsibility to support their staff to gain the registration, sustain the registration and pay for the registration. So an external provider will either pay for that registration or it will be an individual responsibility, because the registration with the SSC sits with the individual and not with the service.
Okay,
Thanks, Chair.
I think that's really what I'm just trying to tease out here, in terms of what are the on costs. So if I am a registered childminder delivering a service within East Ayrshire, does that mean that I have to pay for my own SSC registration?
Through you, Chair, childminders are not registered with the SSC. They're only registered with the care inspection. It's only those that work in daycare of children's services that are registered with the SSC. Childminders are an entity on their own and are registered with the care inspectors.
Okay, so again, what you can see, I'm sure, Jenny, what I'm trying to tease out here in terms of what are the ongoing costs and what are the incentives to actually be engaged in this form of work, or equally what are potentially the barriers that people have to look at when they're looking at what they are actually going to provide for us.
Through you, Chair, Councillor Mackay, the childminding community in East Ayrshire is very healthy in comparison to other local authority areas, and yes, there has been a reduced number of childminders in East Ayrshire from what there used to be. Many childminders took up the opportunity to gain a qualification and actually go and work in a local authority in an early childhood centre or nursery as part of the expansion. However, childminders in the main are women, and most of those childminders take the opportunity to explore becoming a registered childminder when they have young children of their own, and when the children are older, they may decide to go out and work in the workplace. At the moment, through the Tackling Child Poverty Fund, there is an opportunity for childminders or prospective childminders to access funding to support their entry into the childminding area of work. Childminders obviously have to do their own returns, and many of their expenses are their tax return to the tax man or woman. They can set some of their expenses against that. So that is also helpful for childminders. But many childminders go into the business because they have young children of their own. They want to work. They like working with children. They like engaging with parents. They see that they're providing a very strong community service. And we also have childminders who want to provide additionality to their service, and therefore go under a further assessment as a community childminder and provide services for some of our most vulnerable children in East Ayrshire as well. So with 115 registered childminders at the moment, with 40 childminders on the current framework to deliver funded ELC, and approximately 22 of those childminders, 21, 22, who are community childminders, our childminding community is healthy. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Jenny. And again, thank you. And I'm sure you can hear that I am creating questions so as that we actually have a real comprehensive view of what it is we're actually delivering here. And that is something that's really important, so as that we are clear about, again, the complexity of ensuring that what we actually do is deliver something that is the very best that can be within, of course, our funding packages for children and families. And I know that over your decades of contribution, that's something that you have worked for endlessly in relation to that. And I'm glad about that, and glad that we have this paper before us with a way forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maureen. I know, I think, well, as I said right at the start, you understand completely. It's quite a body of work involved here, and it is very, very complex. Just in the last point, you know, it was quite interesting to see. It seems so. It's 8 or 9 years ago since I was last in a private, my old Dean Park nursery with my kids, but. Been surprised, you'll know well, Maureen, and it's been really surprised the number of people that were doing childminding there are now East Ayrshire employees that have come through that sector, and the attractive paying conditions that they've got in this side of the house, and they've been able to build up careers here. And it's right across East Ayrshire. I've met many of the practitioners from there, so good to see that kind of career advancement through childcare. Yeah.
If you could indulge me, particularly at this period of time, in relation to Janie's career, if I may share that I was privileged decades ago to be the person who actually introduced Janie to some funding that set her feet on the very first step of her journey to the position that she has held now with, and joined us finally within East Ayrshire. And at this time in her career, it is quite incredible how mothers coming together, because that's what we were at that particular stage, mothers of young children, seeing a need in a community and seeing how actually we could meet the needs of that community. And that very much, Leader, picks up your point about how we actually work together and look at the delivery that Janie has done for us, but also the incredible career that she has created for herself. So thank you again for that.
Thanks for that.
So
I think it's, Maureen, just if you'll forgive me, I think it's one of the first times I've seen this chamber, Janie blushing. But I think, you know, we'd all like to thank her for all her hard work that she's done through East Ayrshire to build up what a successful service in terms of early years that we've got here. Maureen.
Very much, and on that basis I'm very happy to move the recommendations with the additionality of that reporting back increase, please.
Okay, I think in terms of my colleague Councillor McMahon, Jim, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I will be brief. I think all aspects have been covered in this paper. I truly welcome that investment in the savings that's been made. I know it's been challenging, Janie. You and the team have done a remarkable job. Again, like Councillor Mackay yesterday, I had the honour and the privilege of visiting one of our early year centres in Ohalet, and what a privilege it was to see the kids really enjoying themselves, and especially the staff and the way they go about their business and make life more enjoyable for the kids when they're there. They're really looking forward to Halloween, and that really shone through all the stuff that they're coming across there. Just finally for me, as far as childminders go, and when you saw it, Dougie, you had spoke about childminders coming in and working for East Ayrshire. I want to pay tribute to somebody that went the other way, that was an employee of East Ayrshire and has now went to childminding, and I think it was a glowing report for the Care Inspectorate last year for Lynette's services in Youth Cumnock. It's been a really glowing report for somebody that's diversified from where she was in East Ayrshire and moving out into that child care service, delivering absolutely a brilliant service, glowing report, and I'm really delighted for the young woman that she's went that way as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. David?
Yeah, it was just to clarify, Chair, members, that I conferred with Amanda, and the report will come in the form. I mean, there's no point in reinventing the wheel of the members' briefings. So mid-November, mid-December and mid-January would be monthly. That gives a month from now, because we've had an update today. So it can be reflected in the minute if members wish. And obviously there can be, it wouldn't exclude reporting in East Ayrshire performs in terms of the final position come January or the year end or whatever. But in terms of that immediacy, it will will be a monthly update on progress with the recruitment against the posts that are vacant. Mid-November, mid-December, mid-January would be the intention.
Thanks. I think I'm quite happy to absorb that in a minute. Just to reflect on yesterday's visit, it was great to see the Chief Executive in his happy place in the sandpit with the Wains and Nell thirdly. And Linda and others, I think it was everybody was in a happy place yesterday. Yeah. But yeah. Okay, so Maureen, I think that's effectively what Maureen's moved, so I'm quite happy to second Maureen there, but was that added? Absorb that in the recommendations. Yeah. Okay, and the next item is early intervention and prevention and fairer futures partnerships. And Pauline is going to pause over there. Over to you, Pauline.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be presenting this report to you this morning, setting out proposals in relation to the East Ayrshire Fairer Futures Partnership and the Council's Early Intervention and Prevention Fund. Cabinet's agreement is sought for investment in the 3 initiatives described within the report, including a partnership project with Scottish Government, Yetworld, the Zone and Centre Stage to tackle child poverty through small-scale targeted tests of change, the continuation of the ASN Holiday Support Programme, and funding to support power of attorney during dementia post-diagnostic support. The report also confirms that arrangements will be put in place to ensure clear project planning and project management structures, together with monitoring and evaluation processes that will support the early identification of delivery issues, ongoing learning and assessment of impact. If I could turn first to our proposals to work with the third sector and Scottish Government. As detailed within paragraph 16 of the report, the Scottish Government recently announced as part of its programme for government that East Ayrshire would be one of 5 new Fairer Future partnerships, a place-based programme which aims to reduce child poverty through local initiatives focused on small-scale tests and service reform with a view to long-term scale and sustainability of approach. The Scottish Government has allocated £600,000 over 2 years to East Ayrshire to take forward this work, and today Cabinet is asked to approve match funding from the Council's Early Intervention and Prevention Fund. As set out in the report, it's proposed that this funding is passed to 3 local third sector partners to support them to take a holistic and place-based approach to addressing poverty and inequalities. The proposed distribution of this funding is set out at the table at paragraph 66 of your report. Each organisation will deliver place-based supports that are person-centred and which recognise the challenges faced by people within their local area. This will include work to reduce the impact of poverty, demonstrate fairness, provide skills for learning and work, improve daily routines, and reduce demand on other areas of public service. Fundamentally, the approach recognises that lasting change requires commitment from multiple sectors and that we need to think differently about how public services are delivered. On a personal note, it's been really good to work with colleagues from Yetworld, the Zone, Centre Stage and Scottish Government to take this work forward, and we look forward to continuing our work with them as we develop their detailed plans and demonstrate the impact that they are having. As noted within the report, work is continuing on the development of our first Early Intervention and Prevention Fund Action Plan, building on the feedback from our roundtable and our ongoing conversations with elected members, partners and other colleagues. However, we did want to take this opportunity to seek your agreement on a further 2 proposals that would be included within the first iteration of that action plan. First is the ASN Holiday Support Programme, and members will be aware of the background to this initiative. Significant work has been undertaken by colleagues, parents in Aberlour over the last couple of years to ensure a positive experience for children and young people and their families. The report provides links to the previous reports agreed by Cabinet, together with a summary of the positive feedback we've had this year from the summer programme with Aberlour. More recently, my colleague Sina Curry has been working with the Alliance with staff and families to share what has changed for them over that period of time and what we still need to do to meet the needs of children and their families. This led to the production of a short film, the link to which is included within your report. In order to enable us to build on this good work today and to provide some stability for families, Cabinet is asked to allocate £150,000 per year for the next 4 years towards implementing this project. This should allow some scope to consider expansion, which would be aligned with the needs of children and young people and their families. The third initiative is around about power of attorney, and we're asking members to agree funding to support individuals and their families to put in place power of attorney during dementia post-diagnostic support. As members know, East Ayrshire has an ageing population, And for those who receive a dementia diagnosis, they receive a year's post-diagnostic support, which helps them to plan for future support and decision making. The number of people referred for support in the last year for which we have data, 2021-22, was 224, which colleagues in the Health and Social Care Partnership believe to be just short of 50% of those who were diagnosed. Having a power of attorney in place at the earliest possible stage enables people to plan for their future while they are still able to. It ensures that individuals don't spend lengthy periods of time in hospital while a guardianship order has been sought, and brings peace of mind to the wider family. However, the cost of this can be unaffordable for many individuals, with minimum costs estimated at £320. At any one time in the last year, there have been up to 22 people delayed in hospital due to individuals being unable to make informed decisions regarding their future care, and where there's a need to identify a decision maker to be formally appointed. Cabinet is therefore asked to allocate £150,000 per year for the next 4 years, which could support up to a maximum of 468 power of attorney applications per annum. The implications are set out from paragraph 59, and I particularly want to draw your attention to the financial implications. On the advice of Joe, our Chief Financial Officer, it's proposed that the full amounts we're asking Cabinet agree today, a total of £1.8 million, will come entirely from this year's £4 million allocation from the Early Intervention and Prevention Fund. As noted in the report, funding has previously been agreed for half-price school meals, which means that the balance remaining in this year's Early Intervention and Prevention allocation would be £1.34 million. This means that there would be a full £4 million allocation remaining in each of the years that follow. Members, the proposals detailed within this report underpin the Council's commitment to early intervention, to prevention, and to human rights and person-centred approaches. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 3 of your report, and I would ask you to endorse the approach being taken and to approve the funding allocations as requested. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this today, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Pauline, and particularly like to welcome this report. Can I say just we had the visit last week from the First Minister to Centre Stage, and that's just one of the organisations that are very much thinking differently about how we deliver services. But I have to say, you're not straying too far away from the recommendations of the Christie Commission and how we think differently. And I think it's great to see these organisations really deliver and attack some of the issues that we've got in terms of child poverty right across East Ayrshire, and also good news in terms of the special needs holiday provision, and good to hear that feedback in the last year's summer programme with Aberlour, and also good to see the work that Sign of Courage is doing with the Alliance, etc. in that field as well. And finally, just in terms of, I know a number of members, including Councillor Maitland, have been, and others, Councillor and others right across the board and the council have been pressing this issue in previous seminars, etc., about the importance of just encouraging people to take up power of attorney and what a difference it can make for, as we see such a greater understanding of dementia and Alzheimer's and a lot of these things that practically affects every family somewhere along the line, as I know too well myself. And it's great that we're able to do something about it. It'll be my intentions to move the recommendations here, but I know somebody will be anxious to comment here, and I will lose the hands up. So Claire first, through Jim, Elaine, Maureen.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And Dougie, I would like to thank you as well, because I know that you've pushed for this on all our behalf. So just very quickly, anyone who has been through the system who hasn't had a power of attorney, my heart goes out to you. I went through the system with the power of attorney for my father. However, what we're doing here is just something that just puts people at the centre of real care. It's expensive to do it, but the knock-on effects of not doing it is just so bad. I'm sorry, I'm going to lose my words because I'm a little bit emotional, but I'll just pull myself together here. We're looking at the flow of care through the hospitals. We start with our GPs. They might end up in hospital after being to their GP, and then the flow stops. And when the flow stops, the care stops. People with dementia do not belong in hospital. We do not belong in hospital once we've been, the decision's been made that we should leave. So when we hear about 22 people sitting there waiting for guardianships that can take up to 6 months, and every day an elderly person with dementia is in hospital is equivalent to 10 years. This is unbelievable statistics. The deterioration is rapid. It's horrible to watch. And if they don't get the proper care, they may well die in hospital. So these are very uncomfortable conversations to have, like palliative care, like making wills, but this will help people. And it is attached to that post-diagnostic 1 year help. So I think I'm going to have to stop. I had an awful lot to say on this, but I really don't think I can at the moment. But let's have the conversations out there. We all need to talk to people. Yes, there's a financial attachment to this. It is expensive to get power of attorney. It is a barrier to putting in care, but we can all talk about this. We've talked about it in meetings out with the council. We've talked about it with families. We talked about it with constituents, talked about it at community councils. It's an easy ask for all of us to go out there and speak to everybody we know. So I welcome this paper. I'm sorry I haven't been as articulate as I sometimes can be, but this has been a roller coaster of a year for myself, my family, and I know for colleagues as well, cross-party. So I want to thank you, I want to thank Eddie, I want to thank Craig MacArthur, and I'd like to thank all my colleagues. So thank you.
No, well said, Claire. I think you made your point very well indeed, as you have continually. Drew.
Page 83, Chair, paragraph 66 there. 3 great groups there, Centre Stage, World and the Zone. Great work they do. I'm just thinking that Centre Stage, I think they've got council representatives on the group, same with World. I don't believe the Zone has. They did have Elaine, and obviously ex-councillor Stewart's now MP Stewart. Congratulations to Elaine. But I wonder if it's possible, Pauline, for the Doon Valley councillors to actually attend the board meetings at the Zone when this significant investments get into the communities, when there's actually councillors at the Centre Stage and at World, if that was possible. Maybe have that discussion and come back to us.
No, I think that seems absolutely reasonable, and I think that's something we would support and encourage. Pauline?
Yeah, certainly I'm going out tomorrow to visit, in fact Friday afternoon to visit the Zone, so we can have that conversation with them when we're out there and say that that's been raised at this meeting. We will have a project board internally that will work with the 3 third sector partners.
Just
to make sure we've got that engagement, and we will report back here as well.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, as you put, the other organisations have been very much home to that, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be the case there. Who do I have down? Elaine?
Thank you, Chair. I want to focus on the SN holiday programme, but before I do that, I just want to support Councillor Maitland's. We're similar ages and we're in that life cycle of dealing with elderly parents, and I have to say that the purpose of setting up the Early Intervention Prevention Fund was exactly for things that Councillor Maitland was talking about, so fully support that work. The ESN holiday programme, I think it's important we recognise the journey that we've been on with this, and that we still continue to be on at the moment. There's been lots of learnings through the initial period of change, and specifically from the 2-year pilot programme. And I'm pleased to see that the paper acknowledges there's still a lot of work to be done to evolve that to the standard that we would like to see. And of course that work, none of it would be possible without the direct involvement of the staff at Willowbank, Crosshouse, Hillside, the parents, carers, and the support that's been provided from the Alliance and Aberlour Children's Charity. So hopefully this report today, the investment will signal our intent to do the best we can within the limitations of the challenging fiscal landscape that we operate in local government, but also shows our commitment to doing the best we can for children. I do have one question. I'd like to know who is going to be the lead officer internally for this programme. I know he's no longer here, but I think it's fair to say I think I was a thorn in Kevin Wells's side. I was constantly asking over the period of at least the last 2 years about where we were in this programme, so I would like to know who the direct name contact is, so I can hopefully not be a thorn in their side, but hopefully they'll realise that all my questions are coming from a positive place. Thank you.
So at the moment it's going to be Sina Curry, who's based within corporate support and who you'll have had contact with around about some of the work she's been doing with the Alliance over the last wee while. She's going to be with the Council in terms of taking forward the recommendations from the Children and Young People Strategic Review, and as part of that she'll also be the lead contact for this work.
Well, thanks for that, Paul. And I realised that she'd done some work recently with the Alliance, so I wasn't sure if she was going to continue going forward with this programme. And obviously, having the funding for the 4 years, that gives us the stability to do that work, to evolve it to where we want it to be. That's lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Helene. Jim.
Thanks, Chair. I really welcome this paper. I welcome this investment for the Scottish Government, and also our commitment to drive forward these policies, as well as really tackle that poverty and that early intervention at the earliest possible stage. We know we're never going to eradicate poverty. I wish we could. We can mitigate as much as we can, and we know the challenge that certainly faces. I certainly welcome this, and we know we're recognising the zone, world and my ward and centre stage, that we really need to work collaboratively with our partners. We're never going to solve this on our own, and through that third sector involvement, it certainly go a long way to help us. They know our communities as well as us, so I really welcome this investment to the local places. Looking at that and some of the stuff there in promoting skills and learning, again, if I can back up on Councillor Mackay touched on it earlier on there, about our visit to SL33 yesterday with the presidential team for COSLA. 3 young people spoke about enhancing their skills. A young man coming from Glasgow with assisted needs really spoke well and how he has been helped with SL33. Then I had a young lassie that really totally detached for that education system and got involved in SL33. And really touching for me, it just about brought a tear to my eye again when the work that has been done with SL33 in education, everybody working together, that our mum was quoted as saying, "I've got my daughter back." That's what it means with early intervention. It's really touching to hear something like that, and how we can really market and play our place in our young people's future. And then, as Maureen touched on, a young mum enhancing her skills again, going for a job opportunity in an interview at Chris House Hospital and getting the job. So these are really important things that we are investing in, we're working in and doing our utmost as we can under what is, as Councillor Kevin said, really trying fiscal conditions. But I'm really encouraged by the work that we're doing, and hopefully this will go a long way to try and help the people that are really finding the current situation now really difficult.
Thanks very much, Jim. And it was great to hear the reaction for the folk up in COSLA team that are just sitting usually up involved with government negotiations, to actually see firsthand, just how local government can make an absolutely massive difference to lives right in the heart of the community. And we just focused on one particular community, near Third in East Ayrshire, and it was to hear some of the testimonials and some of the from some of the young people. It was absolutely, it was very emotional indeed. But I think we need others to follow suit and just realise what local government's delivering right across our communities, not just in East Ayrshire, right across the board. And that our services should be absolutely, what we do is be appreciated, as it is by many members of the community. A couple of folk now. I've got Maureen and John. Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very briefly, but I do want to just praise Councillor Maitland for the work that she has done in making sure that we actually bring the issue of being able to fund power of attorney funding and the implications that has for us. Councillor Maitland, you have done a really good job here, and I thank you for that. Pleased with this. One question specifically to ask, and that is in relation to the ASN food support programme. You'll see that I think the stat is that we've got in the report that it's only 36% were satisfied in terms of what the food provision was. That seems to be a theme this morning. So if we can get some assurance that that's being noted, it's been presented to us, and we know that there's work that's going to actually improve that. And again, just to raise the issue this afternoon, I know at the IGIB, the Chief Social Work report will be before the IGIB, and unfortunately what we're looking at there is of course an increase in relation to growing child poverty stats. So again, it's something that we are focused on, and it's something that we continue to focus on, and there certainly is cross-party support to keep us focused on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, can I bring in Pauline?
Yep, so in terms of the feedback that came through Aberlour in relation to food, it recognised the wide range of kind of sensory and dietary requirements that were needed from the people who were attending the summer group. It has been highlighted as one of the recommendations within their report. So as we look to take the programme forward in future years, it's certainly something that will be receiving attention.
Thanks very much, Pauline. Okay, John.
Yes, thank you. Going to the power of attorney thing, I'm very pleased to hear, we have funding and all this has been put in place. But from a personal experience going through it within the last 6 months and experience of constituents who have come and spoken to me, the time it takes to get the power of attorney put in place sometimes seems unrealistic. And I just wondered if there's, anything being done to, once the funding's available, to actually speed up the process of getting the power of attorney from the point of application, because that just seems to be, for some people, far too long. I don't really understand why. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I hear that sometimes, but I think Craig will be able to help us. Craig's online.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully you can hear us okay. Some connection difficulties, but yeah, certainly in relation to power of attorney, I think the application process is designed to be relatively simple, but there's clearly some additional steps in there that can take a wee while in terms of the registration particularly. And I know through the Office of the Public Guardian there have been some significant delays, particularly in getting POAs registered, although they have done a significant amount of work to try and get that expedited. So I think through the work that we plan to do here through Alzheimer's Scotland, we want to make sure we're working closely with the solicitor base, etc., to continue to make that as effective and as efficient as it possibly can be. What I would say in relation to POA, the timescales around about that are much quicker than it would be otherwise. So if somebody ends up in hospital without the right legal powers and have to go through a guardianship process, that takes much longer and it's much more expensive as well. So the reason for doing this is to very much expedite things in terms of the POA being a much more effective way of getting those legal powers in place that people can then rely on in the sort of later life, I guess. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. Claire, do you want to come back in? No.
Just in terms of what John was saying, this is specifically about early intervention and prevention, and this is post-diagnosis, early diagnosis. It's within the first year. So hopefully by the time that needed to be activated would be a long way.
Yeah.
Touch wood down the line. Thank you.
It's catching.
And can I just say thank you to everyone?
No, I think it's well merited. Thank you, Claire. Anyone else? Any other comments? I think we've removed the recommendations, but just based on some of the previous conversations, I'd maybe like to task. We've had some discussion about apprenticeships and employability. We've had food provision and school meals, and we also had other issues, speech and language therapy. In terms of the 1.3 million remaining, this is an exclusive list, but if kind of task officers to have a deeper dive into that and to see where we can take some action to support some of the previous work that we've done in apprenticeships and employability, to see if there's any. I know it's been pardon the pun, but a bit of a moving feast in terms of school meal provision, and I think early, there is an issue to do something fairly quickly about some of the issues in terms of speech and language therapy that have affected our young people during COVID that we really need to deal with very quickly as a matter of experience. Eddie, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Leader. Absolutely. As we know, the elected members across the council have been brave enough to actually set aside this £40 million fund, and therefore it's from the members that we look for advice on how to invest it to actually make a difference in our communities. So we already had, you know, invested in school meals before today. We bring forward 3 additional ones today. So these suggestions of looking further at employability, the impact of speech and language therapy, as we all know, that goes right from early years right up through justice systems and everything, you know, like, in terms of that, and the implications continuing around meals are 3 areas that we're happy to go away and explore and bring back details, so as, you know, again, members can make due considerations around the areas.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, if we observe that in the recommendations and an additional recommendation, could we agree the recommendations? Okay.
Agreed.
I think that's it. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Can I thank everybody for their attendance and all that talk about food.
Thank
We're
you.
getting close to lunchtime. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.